These are some practical tips for working with the California Budget Committee staff. In talking with both houses' Budget Committee staffers over the past few weeks, there are some practical tips that were shared with me for those working with these staff members. Now, while some of these recommendations may seem obvious, many of them at least bear repeating. So these are some of the suggestions that were shared with me. Timing is important. Make sure you talk with the committee consultant prior to them finishing their analysis for your specific budget item. Hearing from an advocate just days before a budget item scheduled committee hearing, for example, doesn't leave much opportunity for the consultant to address any concerns. Email seems to be the preferred method of communication for the fiscal staff consultants, by the way. As Assembly and Senate committees and, of course, their budget subcommittees have different deadlines and rules, be sure to check in with individual committees and subcommittees to know what deadlines apply for letters, proposed amendments, and background materials. Kindness goes a long way when dealing with committee staff, which means both the consultant and the committee secretary or assistant. Return the phone calls and emails from committee staff promptly. There are some lobbyists who have a bad habit of either not responding or responding too late. Provide materials in the easiest to use format, such as a Word document where materials might be able to be cut and pasted into a committee analysis, for example. Don't forget to share your advocacy letters and support materials, as well as any proposed amendments or changes, with the relevant Assembly Republican Caucus consultant, as well as the Senate Republican Caucus consultant as well. Always identify the client you are engaging on whose behalf with the committee staff and be clear what you're asking for on behalf of that client. As a general rule, always start the meeting off with what your ask is so that staff don't have to figure out while you're talking. Put all your cards on the table and have an honest discussion. Don't call or email the committee to ask questions that can be answered by a quick glance at either the daily file or the committee's website. Be sure to check the subcommittee agendas and then later the full committee's agendas because they set forth detailed staff recommendations, the order of items being heard, and other critical information. Be judicious with your meeting requests, especially during the busiest time of the year. Of course, read the governor's proposed budget change proposals, the BCPs, in the issue areas that you care about right after their release, and contact the relevant budget committee staff, including the Republican caucus staff, in order to weigh in on that BCP early. Also, don't make staff guess your group's thoughts. Submit your position papers or your thoughts to the staff well ahead of the pre-hearing meetings. These are typically held at least 2 weeks before a scheduled budget subcommittee hearing, and this will allow budget committee staff to raise concerns with the administration, for example. In early February and in May after the revise, be sure to read the draft trailer bill language as soon as it's posted on the Department of Finance website, and then submit your comments or concerns as soon as possible, just like any other budget proposal. Be prepared for when the various pieces of trailer bill language get added to a budget intent or spot bill. In order for your organization's support or oppose or note concerns letter can be added to that bill's record. It's really a brief 72 hours or so before the bill is often voted upon at the floor session. Now, if your client's position is critically important, be available to testify at the budget subcommittee hearing. Also, the full budget committees may end up hearing and be the only ones hearing trailer bill language, for example, at some point during that 72-hour period. For a budget request for your organization, it's recommended to secure a sponsor for your budget request so that that legislator can work your proposal on the inside, just like a bill is done. There are multiple players in the executive and legislative branches dealing with the budget. There are primarily a few in the legislative branch, the LAO, Legislative Analyst Office, of course, the Senate and Assembly budget committees, and leadership staff. In the executive branch, of course, it's the Department of Finance and the governor's office. So be sure that you include all of them in your advocacy efforts. Now, your best and sometimes only chance for public comment is in one brief budget subcommittee hearing. On occasion, you may also be able to speak for perhaps a minute before the full budget committees in the Assembly and Senate. So be sure to choose your comments wisely and show up and wait for your brief public comment opportunity. In addition to the initial budget change proposals and trailer bills on the DOF website, there are additional documents posted after submission of the May revise that you'll want to review as well. And as I was reminded on several occasions, advocates in the state budget space don't just need a legislative champion, but also a member who prioritizes a specific budget request. A final piece of advice given, even if you think that you don't have a budget client, make sure to at least scan the DOF website and the budget subcommittee agendas for the Assembly and Senate, especially during trailer bill items, because often we'll find policy that could in fact be of concern to your clients.